Welcome to the JW Marriott Super Bowl headquarters. I'm Mark Hale, standing here with the great Mike Vaccaro here as we broadcast to you live from Super Bowl 46, the week leading up to it. And back today we had Media Day, my first Media Day. You're a veteran of this sort of thing, but as this week kind of goes on, you're a perfect person to ask this to because you covered this 4 years ago, Giants, Patriots. How is kind of this week comparing to the week of 4 years ago?
Well, the Super Bowl is kind of like one of those repetitive eggs that go round and round and round. It's the same thing every year. People plug in your colorful quote, plug in your bland quote, plug in your colorful people around you. I guess the one thing that was different today is that they actually sold tickets.
Yeah.
7,000 poor saps.
Some fans here today.
7,000 poor saps actually pay $25 a piece to watch us ask questions. So,
right.
You know what? I think both teams are in a place where they want to be. They both look at this as a fun day.
Yeah.
Or they try to look at it as a fun day. They take a team picture. They get to look at the stadium for the first time. They get a chance to wear their uniforms, Super Bowl uniforms for the first time. I mean, yeah, you get some prickly moments when you get some silly questions, but you know what? I don't think there's either not nearly as many silly questions as there used to be, or people are used to it and they're expecting it. They're expecting the VH1, MTV, Telemundo questions.
They all kind of take it in good fun.
And so they do. They look at it as an hour out of their day. I mean, the business at hand starts tomorrow, and it'll be very grim and grueling and just a typical work week from here. But today's kind of a gas for them.
Let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about Tom Brady here. Obviously, probably one of the megastars, obviously, in this game. And, he had an interesting quote today that we just saw where he was talking about 4 years ago, the night of Super Bowl 42. He went to bed, he got an hour's sleep, and he woke up saying, this was a nightmare. This didn't just happen. And, I'm curious kind of what, this is a guy who last week said he did not play well against the Ravens. We know what happened to him against the Giants 4 years ago. You kind of expect a big Tom Brady game on Sunday night?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, look, the only thing that surprises me about what Brady said is that he actually got an hour's sleep. I actually don't believe that. I don't think he slept at all. Look, he's got exacting standards for himself and for his team. We've seen him on the sideline. A guy drops a pass, he's going to hear about it from Brady. A guy misses a block, he's going to hear about it. His offensive coordinator heard about it a couple of weeks ago, right? So he's also not shy about criticizing himself, which we saw. And he's such a perfectionist, and he's got such ability. When you have a perfectionist who's also pretty good at what he does,
and who's the clear leader of that team.
And who's the clear leader of the team. There's no question. Everybody defers to him. Everybody seeks leadership out of him. And, I think that's one. I found it funny, Mark, the last couple of days, it seems like the Giants bandwagon has become almost bulletproof. I've gotten so many emails from so many fans saying, I've tried to see how they can lose the game. They can't lose the game. Okay, that's fine. This is still a team that's won 10 straight games.
Right.
You don't win 10 straight games in the NFL by accident.
It's a borderline dynasty.
They're right. They're a couple of ticks here. They're a helmet catch away from already having won 4 championships, going for 5 this time. All right, that's fine. That's all speculation and didn't happen. But it's Tom Brady, and I wouldn't want to be a defensive coordinator trying to figure out how to stop him, because I don't think you do stop him. And what you try and do, as they did the last time, is try and minimize the damage.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about this game is that the Giants. O.C. Umenyiora said something interesting a couple of weeks ago when the Giants beat the Packers. He said it's hard to beat a team twice. And, we've kind of seen that so far in this Giants run. They lost to the Packers during the season. They beat them in the playoffs. They lost to the 49ers during the season. They beat them in the playoffs. Now they're facing a team in the Patriots that they beat in the regular season. You almost kind of wonder if, now we're going to go the opposite way.
It worked the last time, too, don't forget. The Giants lost the Patriots the last game of the season back in 2007, and 4 weeks later, guess what happened?
No doubt.
That doesn't mean that the Patriots are automatically going to win the game, obviously. But I do think it's kind of funny to think that this is a team that not so long ago was 6-6 and 7-7, and now all of a sudden, there were some people look at them like the '85 Bears,
right.
And they're very good. Don't get me wrong, and I think it's certainly the Giants. They're not favored according to Las Vegas, but I think in a lot of people's minds, not just in New York and New Jersey, I think they are the sentimental favorites in a lot of ways. But it's going to be quite a task, and it starts with Brady, it starts with Belichick. It's not they only have 6 or 7 guys in that team, the Patriots team, that lost that game in 2007. But those are guys with very long memories, and they've added some guys who are pretty darn good.
When you look at this game and the way it kind of breaks down, do you see it as a shootout? I mean, it seems to be people are talking about the 2 quarterbacks and 2 teams that not necessarily the best defensive outfits. I'm curious if you see this as this high-scoring shootout that people might expect, or if you think we're headed more towards 2017, 17-14, which we got 4 years ago.
No, I think there's going to be a lot of points scored on Sunday. I mean, the Giants' defense has played terrific. Everybody wants to point to the last game against the Niners, but the Niners have a pop gun offense.
Yeah.
okay, they did stop the Packers, but the Packers also played woeful. They were rusty. They turned the ball over. Again, you give credit to the Giants for doing that. I don't think the Patriots are going to hand deliver the kind of opportunities that those teams did. I do think that Brady, Gronkowski, I think is going to be at least playable. I don't know if it's going to be great, but
compromised but playable.
But you also have Hernandez and you have Brady, knowing what his weapons are. On the other side of the field, you have Eli Manning playing as well as he's played his career. Certainly, you think he's going to be able to put points on the board against that secondary. One thing to remember, though, we thought the same thing going into the regular season game, and it was 0-0 at the half.
Absolutely.
So it's funny how these games have a way of surprising us.
Well, I think one of the interesting things also is, we asked Brandon Jacobs this today about, the 49ers defense. He made an interesting point. The 49ers defense that the Giants faced a couple of years ago was basically a unit that he said they didn't disguise what they were going to do. This is what they are. They had the same personnel on the field, the same package. We're going to stop you. Right. And he said with the Patriots, it's a little bit different. He said you can't get a beat on this team defensively. They're going to line up in a 4-3. They're going to line up in a 3-4. And, Bill Belichick, we know what his coach is like. He's just an historic coach. Maybe the Patriots defense kind of gives the Giants a little bit of difficulty on Sunday.
Well, don't forget, one of the fabled moments in Giants history was their beating the Bills 21 years ago. And the guy who gets almost all of the credit for making that happen is Bill Belichick.
Right.
For these, at that time, his idea was he wanted Thurman Thomas to run for 130 yards, and his defense got mad at him. We all know that story. That was just an off-the-wall plan, which happened to work. Well, this guy, obviously, we forget that before he was this guru of a head coach, he was one of the better defensive coordinators that's ever been employed anywhere. So you got to figure he's going to have some kind of an idea. And don't forget, last time it wasn't like the Giants lit them up 4 years ago in the Super Bowl either. You got to figure that they're going to have...
Giants had 3 points going into the fourth quarter.
Right. There's going to be a plan for the Giants, and you got to figure that if someone's going to be able to figure out how to at least confuse Eli. Don't forget, Belichick basically made his career confusing his older brother almost every time they played, and that's not a guy who's easily confused.
No, it's not.
So you got to figure. I don't want to get into the trap where you're talking about Eli and Peyton in the same breath every time, but the point being that Bill Belichick still knows a few tricks about how to make offense a little harder than it is against other teams.
Absolutely. Now, one of the matchups that's getting a lot of attention already is this, kind of whatever player that Julian Edelman is going to be covering while he's in the slot. This is, as you guys know, this is a converted wide receiver, and he now kind of is the Patriots' de facto third corner. And Mario Manningham was asked about this a lot today. Whether they want to have Edelman covering them. Can this guy be someone who shuts down Victor Cruz and the other Giants receivers in the slot? Can Julian Edelman be a guy that the Patriots... this is an elite Giant receiving core. Can Julian Edelman get stops?
You got to figure that he wouldn't be playing unless Bill Belichick thought he could. But I got to tell you, right, if I'm Victor Cruz, if I'm Mario Manningham, if I'm whoever is lining up and sees him on me, I got to think that I'm swiveling my head toward Eli and said, give me a shot.
Let's go. Yeah.
Look, maybe that's unfair to him, but he's not... Look, think about how hard it is to make a roster in the NFL, and this guy's playing a secondary position for the 8th or 10th game. Now he did do a kind of level a big hit on the Jets season because he almost took LaDainian Tomlinson out late in that game. So clearly he knows how to hit. Clearly he's done enough to be able to
he's clearly a good athlete.
He's a good athlete, a very good athlete. We've seen that on his other side of the ball too. So look, I think certainly you have to at least at the beginning of things. Prove that he can stop you.
Right.
I think clearly, if we're thinking that, I think that number 10 is probably thinking that also.
Do you think there is, and there's so much talk about who's going to cover Gronkowski, how are they going to stop Hernandez, Brady, Edelman on, the slot receivers? Are there any matchups in this game, besides kind of the obvious ones that you think are maybe particularly compelling?
Well, I think that it's funny to me that people kind of forget that the Patriots, when they have to play defense.
Yeah.
They do play defense.
They seem to, right.
Everybody wants to talk about how many yards they've given up, how many points they've given up. All I know is that to take the first Broncos game where the Broncos run out, I think 17-6 up, and then they couldn't move the ball 3 feet.
Right.
This is not an accident.
Right.
And I realize that this Patriots team isn't going to go down with the great defenses in history, but I do think that's going to be the most intriguing thing that I look at is that scheme and understanding. It's a very proud team, very proud coach. They're not going to want to go down as a team that gave up 45 points in the Super Bowl,
right.
And I don't think they will.
Right, and I think this is a team now, the Patriots, who since that first quarter against the in the regular season finale, the Patriots' last 11 quarters defensively, so almost 3 games, they've given up 30 points total.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about a team that started to pick it up a little bit. I was talking to ESPN's Trent Dilfer the other day, and he was saying that they're playing with more decisiveness now, and it seems to be a unit that maybe is gelling a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's obvious. If you watch them play in these playoff games.
As are the Giants' defense.
And you know what? You can talk all you want about how lucky they got at the end of the Ravens game, but, guy makes a play.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 25 teams you can point to that say, you know what, if Lee Evans was trying to catch that ball against them, he would have found a way to get that second foot down before it gets jarred out. And I think that really kind of symbolizes what the Patriots are. Yes, did they get lucky on the missed field goal? Sure they did. But you know what, there's something to be said for, maybe the Giants aren't afraid of them because they've beaten them, but there is something to be said for playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
In the same way that, at a different time, you play the Cowboys at a certain point, you're like, oh my gosh, we're playing the Cowboys.
Right.
It's a big game. What are we going to do? And I don't think the Giants are going to be what are we going to do, but I do think you have to understand that the Patriots aren't going to be awed by what we see, down the block. I mean, the building isn't going to awe them. The moment isn't going to awe them. In the same way, it's not going to awe the Giants. That's why I think this is such a terrific matchup, is the fact that neither one of these teams is going to have the Broadway stage fright.
No.
They've both been here before. Maybe not every player, but it's going to be. That's why I think that the quality of the game, I think, is going to be great. Whether you want to say it's a shootout, whether it's close, you're not going to see a lot of sloppy play. I can't envision a situation where you're going to see a sloppy game.
I agree, and especially with these two coaches, I think, as well, and the preparation that they'll have. I think we're headed for a great game, too. Obviously, we're going to have a lot more coverage as this whole week goes on. We'll be coming to you twice daily with live videos. Tomorrow, it'll be me, Brian Costello, and Paul Schwartz back with you in the afternoon, and then we'll do another live one for you guys later in the day. Vac will be back much later in the week as well, and we'll give you our Super Bowl picks. You can continue to follow Mike on Twitter at MikeVac, VACC, and follow me at HailMark, MARK. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow.